Hi, my name is Lena. Welcome to my channel, and let's talk about Dante's Divine Comedy. It's a read-along with Lukas from the channel Totally Pretentious. I will leave a link to his channel in the info box. I will also leave a link to a Yale University courses on Divine Comedy, which Lukas gave me. And if you have time, I advise you to go and watch them. It's very interesting. Unfortunately, it's a bit too philosophical for me. I wanted to know more about Dante himself and about his historical period, but the lectures are very interesting. Unfortunately, they are 1 hour long, and I think they have 9 lectures for the Inferno alone, so it's quite time consuming. So far I have watched the lectures on Inferno, and I enjoyed it. They were very interesting, but they didn't clarify for me things that I wanted to be clarified. So here's my book. A very beautiful copy. I guess this is a Paradise, and this is probably Beatrice, the woman. Sorry, guys. Dante loves and worships. I cannot manage. This is Dante himself, and he places Beatrice. She died, and he places her into paradise, and she keeps a very good company actually. As far as I know, she's there with Santa Lucia and Mary, Mother of Christ. And this is Dante. Sorry, guys. Dante himself. And I guess it's one of the canties or chapters from Inferno. And this is, I guess, this is Francesca and Paolo. Francesca fell in love. They fell in love, although Paolo was Francesca's husband's brother. The husband found out and killed them both, and now they are in the Inferno. And this is Dante fainted because he felt so much compassion for them. And this is Virgil, his guide, who is leading him, who is guiding him through the Inferno and will guide him through purgatory. So, talking about the Inferno, it has 35 canti or chapters. They are very short. It's a poetry, it's a poem. And first chapter is kind of an introduction. We are told that Dante found himself lost in the forest, that there is a danger to his life in the shape of 3 dangerous beasts, and he wants to get out, he wants to find a way. And some of the commentators say that it's totally and absolutely theological, that it's about faith, that Dante was at the stage when his focus was kind of relaxed, and that he needed to remind himself and remind us about Inferno and purgatory and paradise, about all the things. I'm sorry, guys. But some commentators say that it has nothing to do with the faith. Has more to do with Dante's life and the history of the period. When Dante is writing this poem, he first of all, he was born into Italy that was divided by civil war, and when he is writing this poem, he was banished from his city, his native city, from Florence. And I think he was living as a refugee with some kind Italian nobilities that respected him and liked him. So he didn't have his own place. He wanted to return to Florence, but well, all his life was uprooted. So it probably has something to do with this and with his evaluation of certain things. For example, at first he was very strict. I think he places angels that hadn't refused to choose between God and Lucifer, that were kind of supporting neither. He places them strongly in hell. So at first he was absolutely sure that you need to choose a side, one of the sides in this civil war. But I think later on he changed his mind about this and about fruits. Well, let's continue with the book. First of all, he's lost. His life is in danger. Maybe his soul is in danger. And Beatrice, this woman that is in paradise, she sends Virgil to guide him, to help him, to guide him through hell. For some reason, the road to the paradise, the road up, leads down first and then up. So he needs to go through Inferno, purgatory, to get into paradise and see God. And he's supposed to be the only person who was given this opportunity. And he tells us about his experience. The reason why he chose Virgil as his guide, I guess he liked the poetry very much. Probably back then every poet was self-taught based on the pieces of literature, poetry they read, and I guess Virgil is his favorite poet, and Dante thinks of Virgil as of his teacher. So he chooses Virgil to guide him through this purgatory and Inferno. This book, Inferno, reminded me of Ovid's Metamorphoses because we are given a lot of short stories, a lot of different stories connected with a common theme of sin and punishment for this sin. And you never know what story is going to be next, and you never know how long or how short it's going to be. So it reminded me of Ovid's Metamorphoses quite a lot. And it was actually as enjoyable as Ovid's Metamorphoses. And as violent in some parts. It was that kind of time you can imagine with civil war and everything. So I have some notes because I always forget to tell things that I think important. So let me consult them. It was a very curious mixture. I have never encountered anything like this. It was a very curious mixture of Christian beliefs, of pagan beliefs, and of historical crime. It was extremely enjoyable, very interesting. We have something that is supposed to be a Christian hell, right? Where souls that sinned and did not repent, they are being punished. But in this Christian hell, we have all the rivers of Hades. We have the ferrymen that help souls to get to another shore of these rivers. We have Cerber, we have Harpies, we have giants. And I felt that we almost have Zeus and all the rest of the gods. They were not mentioned, but they were kind of there because everything else was there. So it's a very curious mixture. And that made me think about Russia and the way Russia was Christian. Unfortunately, I haven't read any of theological works or anything back then of the period right after the Christian of Russia. But I don't believe that we have anything like that. I think it's it's my guess. I'm totally speculating here, but I think back then we have only oral traditions. So when Russia was Christianed, because there were not written stories, all the gods, all these magical beings, they had to move on into fairy tales for children. So I don't think we have such a fusion of pagan and Christian beliefs as Dante shows. And it made me curious about Christian of France and Britain, and was there some sort of fusion of the pagan, of Celtic and Christian beliefs? It made me very curious, and it made me want to read first pieces literature of every country. Like I haven't read Beowulf, for example. I haven't read Song of Roland. I read at school ages ago about Igor's campaign. It's a Russian epic, first written epic. Um, so it's made me curious about that. I'm also very curious about this unique vision that Dante shows, vision of the world. Was it unique to Dante or was it common to the Italian culture back then? Because I guess they treated Odyssey and Iliad and Aeneid, which I unfortunately haven't read yet, as historical documents and as philosophical works. And we, in hell, in limbo, we meet all of the best of the society of ancient Greece and Rome. In Dante's opinion, we meet Horace, we meet Homer, we meet Ovid, we meet Virgil, we meet Lucan, whom I haven't read. We meet all the philosophers, including Aristotle, whom Dante adores, as I understand it. So it's a very, very interesting society. We also meet some heroes, but in the circles of hell, like Odysseus, aka Ulysses, like Diomedes, like Achilles. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. The way he treats them like a living, like historical figures. About this historical crimes, this very enjoyable and sometimes horrifying stories. For example, there was a story about a family, a male representatives of the family. Apparently, female didn't count. Didn't count. I'm sorry. About a grandfather, two of his sons and two of his grandsons being walled in a tower and left to die from hunger. It was a horrifying story, for me at least. But at the same time, those stories made me very curious about Guido da Montefeltro. I would like to know more about this figure, who was a general, well-known, well-accomplished general, I think, and then he became not a simple monk. He became a friar, I believe. And then, being a friar, he used his skills treacherously because a pope asked him. Well, Dante clearly respects the church institution, but not all representatives of church hierarchy. We meet quite a lot of popes in Inferno. And I believe Dante had very strong ideas, very strong beliefs, and he condemns to hell, to Inferno, everybody who caused any sort of division, whose counsel caused any sort of division. Division in the church, division in the Italy that led to civil war, division in the families, and blood feuds. Dante clearly wants unity in everything, in the church, in the political affairs, in Italy itself, in families. He wants Italy to be united by a strong leader. It's very interesting, and it made me want to read all the poets mentioned, all the pieces of literature referenced. So it was strangely inspiring, unexpectedly inspiring, and it also interested me in the history of Italy of that period, and in the history of different countries at the moment of questioning. It's very interesting. It was very interesting, but I will have to read it because I'm a stranger to philosophy, and this part goes right over my head. I cannot analyze the text from the point of view of philosophy. I hope Lukas will do that. Right now, all I see is some parts of the history of Italy reflected in the poem. These historical crimes, this division, and some of the pagan elements and Christian elements. It's very interesting. But I think I will have to reread Dante's Divine Comedy after I read more, after I have read all the books he mentions, because I really enjoyed recognizing some of them that I read in the text. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and happy reading.